Maher stood in front of Hollywood's elite and said the unthinkable. "My name is Bill, and I fly private." With one joke, he exposed a truth nobody in showbiz wants to hear. While celebrities preach about climate change, they rack up emissions on private jets. If the voices demanding action are the very faces behind the hypocrisy, what does that mean for climate activism? And who will finally break the cycle? Bill Maher didn't just point fingers, he pointed the spotlight at himself. On January 27, 2023, in front of a live HBO audience, he declared, "My name is Bill and I fly private, and so does every other person who calls themselves an environmentalist who can." The room erupted in laughter and applause, but Maher didn't let himself off the hook. He doubled down, explaining he was tired of pretending. "I'd like to come clean." Instead of hiding behind excuses, Maher laid out the contradiction with a comedian's grin. He joked about buying the first Prius back in 2001, bragged about being an early adopter of the Tesla in 2010, then admitted even those efforts couldn't erase the carbon footprint of his private flights. It turns out there is one thing in this world that is completely impossible to resist. And this is it. It's like heroin. If you do it once, you'll never stop. Maher's confession wasn't just a punchline. He called out the entire tribe of eco-warriors in Hollywood, insisting, "Everyone else is full of shh, and I'm done being full of shh. I can take being a bad environmentalist because almost all of us are, but I can't take being a hypocrite." The honesty landed with the crowd, who cheered as Maher poked fun at both himself and the culture of green posturing. But behind the laughs sat a challenge. If even the loudest voices for climate action can't give up luxury, what hope is there for real change? Maher's self-aware roast set the stage for a deeper look at celebrity climate activism and who's really walking the walk. George Clooney has spent years as Hollywood's conscience, but the receipts tell a different story. In December 2018, Getty photographers caught Clooney in a mall boarding a Cessna Citation at a UK airfield, just days after he'd appeared at a climate-focused charity event. Flight tracking data shows the same Citation flying transatlantic routes for the Clooney Foundation speaking tours, burning more jet fuel in a weekend than most families use in a year. The message, save the planet, but not at the expense of a smooth landing in Lake Como. Leonardo DiCaprio, Oscar in hand, once declared on stage that climate change is happening now. But in spring 2016, wire photos placed him stepping off a Gulf Stream in Cannes, only hours after he'd been spotted in New York. Press reports alleged at least 6 round trips between LA and New York that season, all by private jet. Paparazzi photos and event schedules confirm the timeline, even if the tail numbers stay hidden behind shell companies. The man who warns of melting ice caps seems to have a hard time melting his own travel routine. Bernie Sanders, the self-styled scourge of billionaires, found himself in the same jet set. March 2020, a P photographer snapped Sanders climbing aboard a chartered jet, racing to make Super Tuesday rallies after a climate town hall. His campaign called it a necessity. The optics? A candidate railing against carbon emissions, airborne on a private charter, while his supporters carpooled to the polls. For these icons, the flight logs and photo archives don't lie. The private jet habit isn't a slip, it's the standard. When the world's loudest climate champions can't resist the tarmac, the line between activism and indulgence starts to fade. Award season in Hollywood isn't just about gold statues. It's become a full-blown climate confessional. Every year, stars line up at the Oscars, the Grammys, even film festivals, eager to deliver their urgent plea. We must act now. The speeches are always polished, the lighting just right, the applause perfectly timed. But behind the velvet ropes, the eco-messaging starts to feel less like a call for action and more like a performance. The formula rarely changes. Cue the somber piano music, the slow pan across earnest faces, and a parade of A-listers urging viewers to reduce, reuse, recycle, right before heading off to after-parties that run on diesel generators and imported caviar. Rallies and red carpets blend together as celebrities declare the planet is on fire, then step into fleets of black SUVs waiting outside. It's a ritual that's become almost theatrical in its predictability. The same talking points echo across every stage. Our children's future is at stake. If not us, who? We only have one Earth. The crowd cheers, the hashtags trend, and the headlines roll in. But when the lights fade, the private jets are fueled up for the next destination, and the carbon footprints left behind are anything but symbolic. For all the passionate speeches and emotional appeals, there's a glaring absence of real sacrifice. The scripts call for transformation, but the lifestyles remain untouched. In this world, climate virtue is less about changing habits and more about mastering the optics. The show must go on, even if the planet can't keep up. On August 21, 2020, Hollywood's A-list gathered, virtually this time, for a Los Angeles fundraiser backing Kamala Harris. The guest list read like an Oscars after-party. George Clooney, Jeffrey Katzenberg, Shonda Rhimes, J.J. Abrams. By the end of the night, the Harris Victory Fund and Biden Victory Fund had raked in an estimated $2 to $6 million, with dozens of $100,000 checks pouring in from the entertainment industry's biggest names. FEC filings for that quarter show over $21 million in California donor money flooding into pro-climate campaigns, much of it clustered around these Hollywood-hosted events. The message was loud: climate action starts at the top, and the top was ready to pay. But while the digital applause faded, the world outside didn't get any cleaner. The Global Carbon Project's 2022 report delivered a punchline no one in Hollywood wanted. Global CO2 emissions hit a record high, outpacing every green promise made on campaign Zoom calls. Despite years of celebrity-backed fundraising and political pledges, the numbers on the charts kept climbing. The money changed hands, the speeches made headlines, but the atmosphere kept filling up. For all the talk of urgent action, the only thing rising faster than the donations was the carbon count. Greta Thunberg didn't just talk about climate action, she set out to prove it, 1 mile at a time. In 2019, Thunberg crossed the Atlantic on the Malaysia 2, a solar-powered racing yacht, refusing to fly for the sake of her principles. Her journey made headlines from New York to Stockholm, not just for the symbolism, but for the inconvenience. No red carpet, no first-class lounge, just 2 weeks of cramped quarters, freeze-dried meals, and the North Atlantic's worst moods. Greta's refusal to board a plane stands in sharp contrast to the Hollywood crowd she often criticizes. When studios invited her to events in Los Angeles and Cannes, her team's answer was simple: no private jet, no deal. But climate contradictions aren't just for the old guard. Maher has aimed his sarcasm squarely at Gen Z, the generation that rallies for the planet by day and mines Bitcoin by night. According to the Cambridge Bitcoin Electricity Consumption Index, Bitcoin's annual power use now rivals that of Sweden, yes, an entire country. Gen Z influencers preach about saving the earth, then hustle NFTs and digital coins that guzzle more electricity than all the world's electric cars combined. Greta sails to avoid emissions. Her peers mint tokens that burn through megawatts. The gap between message and method isn't closing, it's just getting more creative. John Kerry stepped into the media spotlight in February 2021, not for a climate breakthrough, but for his travel choices. As the U.S. climate envoy, Kerry arrived in Iceland to accept an environmental award by private jet. When pressed by a local reporter, he didn't dodge. He replied, "If you offset your carbon, it's the only choice for somebody like me who is traveling the world to win this battle." The words landed with a thud. Reuters and the Associated Press ran the quote, and backlash followed in waves. Headlines called it tone deaf. Social media lit up with memes of Kerry's jet next to protest signs. Senators and late-night comedians piled on, asking how the world's climate czar could justify the most polluting way to travel. Google searches for Kerry private jet hypocrisy hit record highs. Kerry insisted his mission excused the emissions, but for many watching, the message was clear. Even the architects of climate policy live by a different set of rules. In the court of public opinion, the carbon offset defense didn't fly. In 2022, global CO2 emissions reached a new record high, despite decades of celebrity-backed climate campaigns and public pledges. This documentary has shown documented cases: Bill Maher's live admission, Leonardo DiCaprio's 6 private jet flights between Los Angeles and New York in the spring of 2016, George Clooney's 2018 Cessna trip, and Bernie Sanders' 2020 charter flight. At the same time, political figures like Kamala Harris have received millions in Hollywood fundraising, while John Kerry defended his private jet travel as a necessity in 2021. Yet, the core question remains unanswered. Why have these high-profile calls for action not led to real emissions reductions? While individuals like Greta Thunberg have demonstrated personal sacrifice, the broader pattern is one of contradiction and stalled progress. The evidence is clear. Without genuine change from those with the loudest platforms, climate activism risks becoming just another performance. Until the reality matches the rhetoric, the credibility gap will persist, and the problem will remain unsolved.